Hey TV fans, Bored now, back with you on this video. I'm going to be talking about episode 1 of A Murder at the End of the World. It is called Homme Fatale. Full spoilers from the start of this review. So, new FX limited series from Brit Marlin, who had a sort of a mini hit with the series The OA a while back on Netflix, a sci-fi series which got a lot of critical acclaim. Something I still need to catch up with, actually. It's one which a lot of people recommended. So, this is her new show, and it stars Emma Corin as the character of Derby, who's a reclusive private detective and hacker. That's kind of what she uses to dig up dirt on people and try and solve cases. And the main setup of the show is that it's like a murder mystery style thing where she's invited to an exclusive resort in Iceland by this billionaire played by Clive Owen, and she's partly going because she has an interest in his wife, Lee Anderson, who mysteriously disappeared some time ago. So she's told she will be there as well, and that's what makes up her mind about going. So it's her and a series of other guests who are all famous for something or other, and a surprise guest there is the character of Bill, who is Derby's ex-boyfriend, who they have a little bit of a history, and he left out of the blue a few years back, so she's surprised to see him there. And as I get more into spoilers, I'll discuss a bit about the details, but it turns out he also has a connection, and he knows Lee, and he says that's why he's there at one point. So you've got a series of guests at this retreat. They're not quite sure why they're there. Like the host, the billionaire played by Clive Owen, is being quite vague about this. But at the very end of this episode, we get a murder, and that's gonna become like the mystery of it. So I would say it's sort of a thriller murder mystery type show, but mixed with a little bit of sci-fi and social satire as well, because a lot of the themes is to do with the technology and to do with things like AI. It feels very relevant because of that. And this retreat they all go to in Iceland, that has a very modern high-tech, almost cozy type feel to it. So it's a really good setting for what's going to be most of the drama. But as well as that stuff, there's flashbacks here and there where Derby's remembering things from her past with Bill. But that's the main setup for the episode. I'll talk about more details in a minute, but I liked the first episode quite a bit. I think it had a good sense of style and mood. There was some good musical choices as well, and the way they were used. You had the opening with the Doors song, The End, and that was a nice choice of music as Derby's walking to. She's going to be giving this talk at this book event because she's written kind of like a memoir or autobiography based on her life, which she's giving a talk about at this event, and that's a bit of music as she's walking in. Very little Red Riding Hood because she's wearing a red coat and she's got her hood up, and it does a good job of getting inside her head. And also the big other bit of music is the Annie Lennox tracks, No More I Love You, which has a very personal meaning for her because it's a song which her and Bill shared in the past, and there's a standout scene with them singing it in the car together to break some tension. But then later on, when she's at the retreat and she's running to Bill, she starts playing it again. So it's an important song to her. So some good musical choices, as well as it being a well-directed episode and having a good visual look. And I think, as I said, it does a good job of getting inside this character's head and her worldview, and how she's very nervous and awkward because of an event in the past. She's very uncomfortable, like, socially, and that's why going to this event at the start of the episode, she seems very, like, reclusive and awkward and almost like an awkward celebrity. Like, she's sort of hoping her books will sell more than they are, but at the same time you can tell she feels uncomfortable in public. And one of the things about her going on this plane to Iceland is that she says at one point, the last time she was on a plane, she had a nervous breakdown. So that's like a barrier for her to overcome. But it's a very psychological episode of TV, this one, because it does get inside her head and you get a sense of her slowly having memories and probably memories being suppressed. But it's a good performance from the actress. I think they've cast her very well. And you've got a collection of, like, actors as well, a few other familiar faces. Obviously Clive Owen is the biggest name, but there are others. Like, one of the other guests is Joan Chan, who I've not seen in anything for a while, but she was famously in Twin Peaks, the original series, and she also known for, like, some 80s movies, and you do see her occasionally pop up in one or two other things. Like, I saw her in an episode of Fringe. But yeah, nice to see her as well, and a few other sort of faces, and then other people who I didn't really know. But you've got a nice vibe and a collection of characters that are going to this event that you could see them doing some things with in the remaining episodes, and just some good intrigue, like, lining set up, and it does make you wonder if there's going to be a connection, like a bigger connection between what happens in this episode at the end and the stuff in the past with Bill. Because I'll just jump to the beginning, because at this book event, Derby starts telling this story, because she mentions how she got into being a sleuth because her father is like a coroner, like the local coroner, so she got, like, an interest for this stuff through that. And she starts reading a part of the book, and it's a section about her and Bill going off on this case, and you start to see how her hacking skills come into play, because she does this thing where she has to hack into, like, the system for the garage door to get that open. And it's quite a tense scene because it like doesn't quite go to plan, and it sets off, like, a bunch of other alarms in the neighborhood, and they have to get the car inside quickly before and shut the door before, like, too much attention is brought on them. So stuff like that. There's some. It's a slow burn episode, but there are some well directed and tense sequences like that. So they're on a case to find out about this guy. Like, has he killed his wife or has he killed his family? And it's quite a drawn out scene where, like, they start digging around in the basement. At one point they fall asleep, and then the next day they do find the wife, and they match up, like, the rings, and they confirm that then he has killed his wife and she's in the basement. And then out of nowhere the guy comes down, or someone comes down. We never see who it is, so it might not be the husband, but, like, it's implied it could be because it's his house. So he comes down, and he's a shadowy figure who they purposely don't show us, and he aims a gun at them, and, like, the two characters, Bill and Derby, start saying the names of, like, his victims, and then he fires a shot at them, and it cuts to black, and that's when we go back to the bookstore, and Derby's like, well, that's enough for tonight. And obviously we're in the present, so it means that they did survive. But then later on we get more from the scene, because Derby has a memory of it when she falls asleep on the plane. And bizarrely, what happens is she wakes up the next morning and she's in a bed, and Bill isn't there, and assumably a bed in the house. So she goes into the bathroom, starts saying Bill's name, and it appears as though Bill has left a message for her in, like, on the mirror, like you can with condensation, and I don't know if it's implied he's killed the guy, whoever it was, like, because it appears as though Derby just sort of blacked out maybe and then woke up the next day, but there seems to be like blood in the bath. I mean, I might have been seeing that wrong. It might have been that the bath had been running, but it appeared as though there was blood in the bath, and the message was a bit cryptic about the bath being too much for him, and he says he's left her the car, and that's it. And that's kind of the bizarre payoff to that scene before. And it's also bizarre because that's the last she saw of Bill at the time he just left. And then it's a surprise later when he's at this retreat. But it does make you wonder if they're going to connect these two storylines a little bit more. Like, I can see the relevance of it, but if there's going to be some link to the actual murder in this. And I might as well jump forward to that, because the murder, in the end, it turns out to be Bill who is killed. So it's a nice reveal as well because on the first night at this retreat, they're having like a get-together dinner, like to introduce themselves. And a big reveal is that Bill's actually there. So there's a lot of tension. She hasn't seen him in a few years. And they have good chemistry as well, like those two actors. And I'm definitely intrigued by their relationship. So it's very awkward at first, and he invites her for a walk. And at first she sort of says no, but it's when she goes back to her room, she has a rethink about it. Well, sorry, I've got that wrong. They do go for a walk. And she obviously has questions, and he says he just couldn't keep up with her. Like, that's why he left. He just couldn't be what she is and match up to her, and was just like scared of her. And they have a couple of nice moments, but it's also very awkward, and he's being very cryptic. And that's the thing about the episode, is it is a setup episode. There's a lot of cryptic stuff where not that much is explained, but I think for me, I was definitely compelled by the characters and the drama and the setup. Then we did get to learn more. But Bill says he's there because of Lee, because he knows Lee. So there's already like a link there, because that's really why Derby is there. And then later on, after starting listening to the song again, Derby goes to his room. The other thing is that Bill created the complex because it's one of these modern state-of-the-art style installations, almost more than like a complex, but that's sort of his thing, and he creates things like that, so there's that as well. But as I was saying, she goes to his room, and at first it appears as though he's with someone and he's having sex, so she like starts to walk away, but then she hears like a struggle and appears as though he might be like choking or something, so she starts knocking on the door, and then she goes around the outside, because it's one of those where you can look in on the other person's room from the outside, and that's where she sees him basically bleeding to death, and that's the end of the episode. So definitely it's a possibility then there's something going on with him and the wife, with Lee, and that could have been who it is in the room. That might be too obvious, but that's definitely one possibility that comes to mind, because Derby also like looked them up, like she saw like that there was images of them together on the internet, so they definitely have like some link, whether it's a relationship or whether it's just something more than that. But yeah, that's the murder, like at the very end, which is now going to be the mystery. So the stuff with her and Bill I thought was like very effective, and they do a good job in setting this stuff up with the other guests. And I think just some of the themes to do with like artificial technology and technology in general, and I think it's a nice little twist on this kind of like character and show than like she is more of a hacker and that's kind of the way she gets information. And it's definitely like a character beat as well for her, because it's like this idea of she's a very nervous, reclusive person, so to live her life in such a way, like through technology, and to almost have interactions that way, and like to make a living by using it, that makes sense for her character. That does like line up with her character. And there's just some smart commentary on like AI, because there's this thing where you have a character of Ray who appears to her in AI form, and when she's invited to the gathering, like he shows up in AI form. He doesn't show up in person, and that's what he is. He like is an AI, because later on, when she's at the retreat, he's like a thing, like in her room, like he's a virtual assistant type thing, and he can like be her guide for the facility and just things like that. And there's different options, like she can put on glasses and she can just get like a visual tour through that, and different things. He can operate things, she can ask him questions, and there's just some pretty smart like ideas about AI and where we are at the moment. And that makes this very fresh because of, you know, what a big thing AI is at the moment and some of the talking points over it. But like at one point when they're at like this dinner, one of the guests is like telling another guest, and because she's on the internet a lot, and you can, there's so many like clips of her talking and stuff, he's saying I can make you say anything, and that's kind of his whole talent. But that's just a whole funny thing, because like she's an astronaut who has stepped on the moon, and she's a bit more than just that. Like she is a scientist as well, who has done important research. But that's one of her claim to fame, that she stepped on a moon, or on the moon, I should say, a moon. And I wonder if that's almost like a very modern thing, this idea of a female actually being a celebrity for stepping on the moon, almost like moving things forward a little bit. But yeah, there's a bit of a banter there, because this other guy's like plays her a clip of her saying I stepped on the moon, bitch. So you have ideas like that, and so that's quite interesting stuff. And there's some quite meaty ideas with that. There's a fun Simpsons reference at one point as well, which was pretty funny. Like it's when she's talking to the AI like Ray, and like the Simpsons comes up. I can't remember the context now, but that's pretty funny, because she mentions how Lisa's her favourite character because it appeals to her, because she's like the one who gets the most overlooked, but is actually like the smartest in the room. So yeah, that's pretty much the episode. As I said, it's a lot of setup, but I thought it was a very strong first episode, and definitely has me like intrigued to see more. Another good line I like, just to pick out another one, is I do like when they're told they all have to have their phones taken off them on the plane, and that they all get them back later. I do like the Derby character saying, but that's like half of my brain. I thought that was a really funny line and sums up like the character. But It is that stuff, like the sci-fi stuff, and some of the ideas around technology and like modern living and celebrities. I think it is a lot of that stuff which is definitely adding a lot more and making it a lot more than just your typical like murder mystery. But yeah, promising stuff so far. So that is episode 1 of Murder at the End of the World. And I'll be back tomorrow with episode 2 review, because the first 2 episodes are up, and then it's 1 episode a week after that one. So let me know your thoughts in the comments if you've seen this. Like and subscribe as always. And another current streaming show I'm doing, if you want to check it out or check out my reviews of it, is The Curse, starring Emma Stone. So that's another sort of like indie style show, which is a streaming show. And yeah, if you're into this, I could see maybe you might be interested in that. But that's a show I'm reviewing weekly, so I've done the first 2 episodes. So if you've been watching that show, then maybe check out my reviews. So yeah, let me know your thoughts on this one, as I said. And you can also support me on patreon.com/borednow. For just $1 a month, you get some early access to things like movie reviews. You also get commentaries on movie and TV. So for example, I do X-Files commentaries. That's something you get exclusive access to on that. And you also get like special like opinion based videos or discussion based videos. So stuff like that will be coming in the future. But yeah, patreon.com/borednow if you want to just support the channel a little bit. But thanks for listening. Keep watching TV. See you guys soon.